Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. Today we have such a special episode for you guys. I'm here with Patience Griswold, who is our lead program director, and she's here to just tell us entirely about the program, tell us about her experience with it in the past as a student, and how she has climbed the ranks, so to speak, to the position that she now holds, and just what's coming in 2022 for LEAD. So, Patience, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited that you're here today. I'd love, first of all, just to introduce you. I mean, I just told our audience, of course, that you're the director of our LEAD program, but some of them might not know exactly what LEAD is. And so let's first maybe just give a 1 to 2 sentence overview of what LEAD is, and then kind of introduce yourself, how you got involved at MFC, and how you became the director of the program.
Yeah, so LEAD is a week-long summer program for teens designed to equip them with a strong biblical worldview, leadership skills, and a hands-on understanding of how the legislative process works. So students come, and at the beginning of the first night, they're sworn in as members of the Minnesota House of Representatives, and then they have all the responsibilities that come with that during the week. They give a press conference, they have a committee meeting, they debate their bills on the House floor, and they're working with legislation that's actually been proposed here in Minnesota. So in addition to that, they're also learning how to read a bill and how the legislative process works from the very start to the end. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I love it. So tell me a little more about, you've been with MFC for 4 years now, is that correct? Or
It'll be 3 officially this summer. I did some part-time work in college and then took a couple years off from MFC. So It comes out to more than 3, but yeah.
Gotcha. So tell us how you got involved, maybe even with the part-time work, how you heard about us, and then your different positions you've held and what you're doing now and how you got to even be in that position.
Yeah, so LEAD really was my introduction to Minnesota Family Council. I was a student in the program the first year that we had it in Minnesota, and then I think it was a year or 2 after I was a student that I did some very part-time work with our then program director, Stephanie, just helping her out with some stuff in the office, and got involved as a regular volunteer with LEAD, started out as an aide-de-camp, eventually became our Senate track coordinator, and then from there stepped into the role that I have now.
That's so exciting. So aide-de-camp, tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so our aide-de-camps are people who, a lot of times they're LEAD alumni, but they don't have to be. They're usually college age, and they're just there to help coach students along throughout the process during the week. So they're helping facilitate our caucus meetings as students are working with their bills. They're sitting in on all of the teaching sessions so that they can have really good engagement with the students on the biblical worldview principles that they're studying, and just really engage in those conversations about what it looks like to bring your faith to whatever sphere of life you're called to.
That's great. So tell me a little bit more about this atmosphere. When you walked onto campus, because it's held at the University of Northwestern campus, as a first-time LEAD student, what was the initial atmosphere like? I mean, I know you're homeschooled, right? And so being around all of these, a lot of people being so like-minded, what was that like? What was the community like? And how did that then shape you to become the person that you are today?
Yeah, so I mean, it's 8 years ago, so I have to think, what was my initial impression?
Let's transport ourselves back in time. Think of little baby Patience.
Yeah, so the homeschool community was actually my initial introduction to LEAD. I was involved in Miché's legislative training days as a student, and their instructor, John Tuma, became our first legislative instructor for LEAD. So I came into it with some connection there, and some expectations of what the week would look like. Also, my speech and debate group was pretty involved. So I had the privilege of coming into it knowing a lot of the community that was there, and really had an opportunity to deepen those friendships and grow alongside a lot of the other students, some of whom I knew and some of whom I met at LEAD. Yeah, and then also just meeting people who are, involved in politics and at MFC, and the connections that I made at LEAD have been really valuable throughout my entire adult life. And that's something that I consistently hear from our alumni as well.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. So you're talking a lot about kind of the balance of the hands-on experience that students are receiving, going to the Capitol, working on real bills, but also that worldview aspect. So what were some worldview elements, some specific topics, I should say, that were brought up even your first year or just throughout your years at LEAD that really resonated with you? Are there specific ones you can kind of just put your finger on and think like, this shaped me in the beliefs that I hold today?
Yeah, I think something that really made an impression on me as a student and as a volunteer was the range of speakers that we bring in for LEAD. We bring people from all sorts of different walks of life, and seeing that, being a Christian who engages with the culture doesn't necessarily mean you go into politics.
Yes.
It can mean that, but it doesn't have to. And I think a lot of young people who are interested in, how do I engage the culture from a biblical standpoint, they kind of have two categories for what that looks like. They're like, I will go into politics or I will go into media. And bringing in a range of speakers who, engage as artists or as entrepreneurs or in academia, and seeing what that can look like in different spheres really had an impact on me and helped me to really catch a vision for that quote that Abraham Kuyper has. There is not a square inch in all of creation over which Christ Jesus, who is Lord of all, does not declare mine. And seeing all the different ways that can look really made an impression on me as a student and as a volunteer coming back to camp.
I love that so much, Patience, because something I've heard a few times from people that I've talked to, when I talk to them about LEAD, they're great kids, great students. I say, I really think you'd like this camp. They say, well, I'm not into politics. Like, I'm just not into politics. And I don't know how common that is. I mean, if you're listening right now, maybe you find yourself in that boat, whether you're a parent or a student. And this just really breaks down that narrative because, like Patience is saying, all space is sacred space. In other words, like I was reading in Corinthians this morning, and it was just talking about how everyone has a different gift, right? Everyone in the body of Christ has a different gift. So Patience is so amazing at so many things. She's an amazing writer, first of all, because she writes amazing content for our blog. We'll have some of her posts linked on the screen right here for you guys. And she's using her talents to run an entire program as a ministry for teens. And other people have different talents, right? Some people are super talented in law or in medicine, and that is amazing and beautiful. And the fact that we can celebrate that is just incredible. And the fact that LEAD, the program, promotes that, even though there is an emphasis on learning the political structure and just learning what politics is all about and how to navigate that. That's not the only point of LEAD. And in fact, I would say what would you say the biggest point is? I want to ask you actually, like, what is the biggest point of LEAD? What's your goal for students when they walk away from LEAD?
Yeah, well, I'd say the biggest thing is we want to equip the next generation to be Christ-like leaders. And, that's something that, it doesn't mean that they're all going into politics. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And just giving them the tools to think critically about these issues and to come at them with a solid biblical framework, while also giving them leadership tools so that they can go and apply what they've learned in a meaningful way in their contexts. So
I think that's so good because so many people these days, especially Gen Z, which we're talking mainly to you right now, or to parents, of course, they want to change the world. We all want to change the world. We want to impact it, especially for Christians, because that's what we're called to do. We're called to be in the world, but not of the world. But it can be really hard to know where to start with that. And LEAD is just such an incredible opportunity for students to come in and to learn how to be leaders in whatever vocation God calls them to or is currently calling them to. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. I'd love for you to give maybe just an overview of the LEAD program, because you've given a really good summary, but maybe just walk us through what a typical day at LEAD would look like. And I know there isn't a typical day. So I've also been involved with LEAD for a few years, guys. And yeah, there isn't a typical day, as in we do so many different things. But maybe you could just give a brief schedule overview, a couple of the highlights. And then I definitely want to talk about what's coming for LEAD 2022 this year specifically.
Yeah, so we have... It's a rather intense program with the schedule, which you know because you've been there. So the day starts bright and early with devotions, and then from there we have breakfast, and usually a teaching session first thing in the morning, followed by time with their caucus group. So students come and each of them is assigned to a committee. The committee is broken into 2 caucuses. Each caucus has a bill that they're sponsoring and one that they're opposing. So they're working with their group on strategizing and, what are the best ways to argue for our bill? What are the best ways to argue against the bill that we're opposing?
And can you explain what a caucus is? Maybe for some of our listeners that are younger and don't know what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So a caucus is basically a group in the legislature that has shared goals. We have the Orange Caucus and the Green Caucus at LEAD, and the Green Caucus has their bills, the Orange Caucus has their bills, and then each committee has specific bills that they're dealing with. So, if you're an Orange Caucus student, you're not dealing with all of the bills that are Orange Caucus bills, you're just dealing with yours. But those are the 2 caucuses that then determine, who's in which group in their committees.
That makes sense. And then what would be an example of a topic that a caucus would be focused on, or 2 topics, I guess, throughout LEAD?
So I'm trying to think of a good one without giving away our topics for this year, because I always have students who are asking, hey, what are our bills going to be? And the answer is no, you can't know.
You can't know. Patience is very secretive with this sort of thing.
Except that a couple of my younger brothers already know one of them, and I'm like, shouldn't have told them that. I just won't assign them to that bill.
Okay.
But
you could give a broad topic too, because I know we've covered abortion. That's one thing.
We have, yep. And we're moving towards keeping some of our more controversial moral issue bills in our Senate track, where our advanced track students are. So House track students, they're usually dealing with questions of like individual freedom versus government regulation, that kind of thing. They've dealt with election law reform, various business regulations. So that kind of topic.
Yep. And so House students, if I'm right, are the first-year students, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then Senate would be the more advanced returning students.
Yep. So House students are our first-year students. Senate is second year or above, or high school seniors, because with our Senate track, they get to learn how the amendment process works as well, which is really valuable information for students to have. So we give seniors the opportunity to go straight to Senate, so they don't miss out on that.
That's really good. I love that. So something I think is awesome about the bills, since we're talking about that, is just how the kids are working with bills that have actually been debated in Minnesota or have sometimes been passed. Is that correct to say? So that's just really awesome, because they have to, sometimes they're assigned beliefs or bills that they don't fully agree with, or sometimes are completely opposed to, but they have to argue for something that they don't agree with, or something they do strongly agree with. And that's a really important tool, I think, for students just in learning how to think critically and to learn how to take leadership and just analyze something, even if it's something that isn't really their cup of tea. So I think that's really good. But so they have these bills, there's these caucuses. What other things are important elements of LEAD?
So we have our trip to the Capitol. We're at the Capitol 3 times during the week. They get a tour just to see, where things are. It also helps calm some of the nerves about the committee meetings when they already know where they're going. They've seen the Capitol, so it's just preparing for the committee. So they have that on Monday, and then on Wednesday they're at the Capitol again for their committee meetings, and on Friday, again on the House floor debating their bills. We also have our evening chapel every evening of camp, where we spend some time in worship, and then we get to hear from speakers who are applying their faith to various areas of life. So I'm really excited about some of our speakers that we've got. We have Carl and Angel Larson are going to be coming. For our listeners who may not be familiar with their names, they are a Minnesota couple that runs a videography business, and they took a religious freedom case to the Minnesota Supreme Court a few years ago. And so they're going to be talking about how their faith shapes the way that they approach business and art, and also how it influenced why they took the stand that they did. And then we also have Ryan Bomberger from the Radiance Foundation.
So
who's
excited.
Going to be coming. He's an incredible pro-life speaker. I'm really looking forward to having our students hear his story and his involvement with the pro-life movement.
Yep, I'm so thrilled for that, honestly. Just those 3 key speakers make me so excited. And I'm just excited about LEAD in general. But those speakers are going to be phenomenal. And so if you're interested in meeting any of them or all 3, make sure you sign up because we do have limited registration. And so the seats fill up fast. It's not something that you should put off till the last minute. Right, Patience?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for her sanity, of course, but also because you might want to sign up and then wait to the last minute, and then we might not have an extra spot. So if you're interested, make sure you sign up. Again, link to LEAD will be in the description, so you can sign up right away by clicking in the description. If you're a parent, talk to your kids about it, and if you're a student, talk to your parents and grandparents for funding. So that's a really good kind of highlight reel of LEAD. I think that really showcases the program well, and even just going to the Capitol, like that's so awesome.
Yes.
And that's just such a good experience for kids that maybe haven't gone or even have gone but want to go with a group of like-minded peers. So that's really good, the hands-on. What would you I know we have a lot of alumni from our program, and you being one of them, of course. So you're kind of our staple alumni highlight, running this program from the ground up. But could you share maybe some stories of other alumni, just what they're doing now, how they're applying what they learned in LEAD, and then taking that leadership into different spheres, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Like, they're not all in politics.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love to see the way that students just very quickly start using what they've learned at LEAD in leadership roles in their lives. I know a student who's still in high school who's running a graphic design business, among many other extracurriculars. He's very much an overachiever.
He's great.
Yeah, he is. Another one who has a podcast that he does on various political issues, really engaging his peers with these things. And then with students who have graduated, I was just talking to one not that long ago who has gone into videography, is doing her own work doing film, and a recent video that she did, beautiful work on a pro-life activist's video, and she was the cinematography behind that, did a beautiful job. And then we've got one who's at CURE, the Center for Urban Renewal and Education, which is Star Parker's group. She works as an executive assistant out there. She was actually a student my year. We highlighted her on our Instagram not that long ago. Another student who's working in communications for a number of political figures, and including for the Minnesota Republican Party. And one who is out in D.C. fighting human trafficking, and she's actually
amazing.
A former MFC intern. She went on to be a campaign director in Maryland, stayed in the D.C. area.
Went to the Pro-Life Summit with me.
Yes, went to the Pro-Life Summit with you.
Yeah,
so it's been really incredible to see what our alumni are doing, and then of course also our policy director, Veronica, is a LEAD alum as well.
Yeah, so LEAD students truly are changing the world. And so if you're a student right now and you're listening and you want to change the world and you just don't know what steps to take, please sign up for this program. It will equip you in so many different ways, worldview ways, but also very specific action steps. And like Patience and I have been saying, those connections that you're going to make connections with peers, first of all, which those peers are going to go on and lead in different spheres of culture. Again, different spheres, not all politics, but you're going to have those connections in so many different ways in your friend group. And these friends will truly last a lifetime. And then not only are you going to have the peers, but you're also going to have people that are currently all grown up and working in the public sphere in so many different capacities, because we have legislators, we have so many MFC personnel and staff, and just so much opportunity in this 1 week. And it's a week long. Did we say it was a week long thing? Yep. Okay, great. Patience said it was a week long thing. There's so much great stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. We're going to transition quick. I want to interview our videographer, Jack Bittner. He's the videographer and producer of the Family Beacon podcast. And we're going to go ahead and roll that clip right now, and I'm going to interview him. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is so exciting. This is our first time having our producer on the podcast. We're so thrilled. He does incredible work, as you guys know. But he, again, was also a LEAD student. And so I'd love, Jack, for you to share about your background and just your experience as a LEAD student. What sort of things stood out to you?
Yeah, so as far as my experience with LEAD, I got into it because of my mom. It was Miche. I'm a homeschooled kid. That's how we first found out about LEAD, and I went in as a representative, and that was my first year going into it. I really wasn't super into politics. Like I was aware of things going on because my parents are very politically involved, pro-life people, but I just didn't really have any interest in like going into the field of like being a representative or a senator or anything like that. So really, my perspective was changed because I didn't know anything about how the legislative system worked at all.
Yeah, so that's a really good thing to hear. I mean, just building off of what we were talking about with politics, what was the community like as far as friendships go? Do you feel like you have friendships that have just continued on after your time at Lead?
Oh, yeah. So I have two friends in particular that I just like really connected with at Lead. And one of them actually, I work with him now making videos. And the other one, he moved away to another state, sadly, but we still keep in touch fairly frequently. And I'm just so blessed to have these guys in my life. They're really godly men. And it's really fun to see how we've grown together, and also just that we met at Lead. It's kind of fun to have that in our past.
Yeah, that's great. What would be maybe your biggest takeaway and highlight from Lead, from your experience? And how many years did you do it again?
Yeah, so I did Lead for 3 years.
Okay.
I did the representative track, I did the senator track, and then I did the media track finally. And those are all great experiences, very different, I might add. I didn't really know what to expect going into. I kind of had an idea going into the senator track because it's somewhat similar to the representative, but still quite different. And then the media track was something whole different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a really cool experience throughout the entire thing. I learned quite a bit about the legislative system. The media track was really cool because you get to see kind of like how the media works, and especially how they should at least cover the legislative process, whether they do all the time. But yeah, just great experience all around.
That's good. So for our audience that maybe isn't aware, Jack also recently did an Unwoke video for us on manly men and the importance of manliness, and how our culture sees masculinity as something that's toxic. And I thought that video was so good. We'll have that on the screen for you if you want to reference that, and it'll also be in the description below. Check it out. But kind of just building off of that, Jack, would you say that Lead strengthened leadership traits in just your walk and made you a stronger man?
Yeah, so I think it definitely made me a stronger leader. In the Bible, men are called to be leaders of their household, for one thing, and then also it's just important for guys to be experienced with leadership, because a lot of times there's going to be pressure placed on them, and if they cave, bad things happen. I mean, major bad things happen. And in that Unwoke video, I go through some examples of that. One being the Civil War is kind of the result of a bunch of weak men kind of caving to tyrants, and allowing slavery to happen, which is an egregious evil. And then also with World War II, that's just an example of weakness giving rise to tyrants like Adolf Hitler. So we know that leadership is an important quality that men should foster. And so going back to Lead, Lead really kind of forced me to kind of take initiative in a lot of ways. So one of those things was with our caucuses. Sometimes there'd be a position where nobody was taking any initiative and nobody was making any decisions, and I was kind of the one to just say, okay guys, I was the older kid, and I kind of just needed to make a decision because nobody else was. And that was really good for me because it kind of prepared me for leadership in a lot of ways. And also just speaking and you have ownership of your own bills a lot of the time. So you really have to learn leadership. So it's kind of trial by fire in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really good. So Jack and I are going to be at Lead 2022. We're so pumped. Give me a high five, dude. We are going to be some amazing ADCs.
If I do say so myself, yes, I think we will be.
We're going to be pretty great. So we would love to talk to you. That's going to be replayed as a meme or a reel or something.
Oh
Gosh.
My gosh. No, the kids are going to have a lot of fun with that. They're going to be
oh boy.
Hey, that's the guy I saw on Instagram.
But we are so thrilled, right, Jack?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm really looking forward to being an ADC. Because never been an ADC for anything really. So
okay, so you're older than me, right, Jack?
I am, yes.
Fun story. Year 1 that I helped out with LEAD, I was an ADC, a counselor, and Jack was a student.
So funny.
It was so good. That's how we met.
I was older than her, and I was a student, and she was my ADC, and so she kind of lorded that over me. But that was
and then
funny.
I hired you, just using it was technically Moses, but
well, no, you are responsible for my job here, so I think you should take that credit.
Yeah. Anyways, we love having Jack on the team. Jack and I are so thrilled to see you at LEAD 2022. Is there one takeaway you could give our audience? One specific thing you think that they should take away from your experience and your just story about LEAD?
So, like, students.
Students. And just maybe even citizenship,
Oh, right. So, just kind of going back to what I said earlier, you don't have to be... I was just talking to Grace about this. LEAD used to be called the Student Statesmanship Institute. Mm-hmm. And so a statesman is someone who is just kind of a well-rounded leader and maybe isn't necessarily political, but is like they're a citizen, They're someone who is a model citizen who is competent, who understands how America's legislative system works, who understands how America works. That's who a statesman is, and that's what we want you to take away, Whether you're going to end up more conservative or more liberal in your policies, we just want you to be a well-rounded Christian leader. And I think that's what you should expect from LEAD. It's not about politics. It's really just about making you into a competent, aware leader. And so that's what I would give to our potential students coming.
So I think Jack really just hit it on the head there with the truth that politics really do matter. And we've been talking a lot about that on the podcast today, just how even though LEAD isn't just a camp about politics, we do firmly believe that politics matter. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Patience.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, that is probably the biggest pushback that I get from reluctant LEAD students is, I'm not into politics, or, does politics really matter? Shouldn't we just be loving people? But it's important to keep in mind that one of the ways that we love our neighbors is to be involved and to be aware of what's going on, because what happens at the Capitol affects each one of us and can affect us in some pretty dramatic ways. Going into LEAD, I've seen so many students who, they come into it reluctant, they don't want to talk about politics, and even just interacting with bills that have been proposed in Minnesota, and seeing issues that actually do affect them. Like, we had a bill a few years ago on nitrogen fertilizer regulation, which so many of the students were like, why are we even talking about this? But you get the students from rural Minnesota, and this is an issue that affects farmers, and this is an issue that affects their communities. And I saw a couple students just come alive when they realized, oh, hey, this is my family that's affected by this, and seeing the ways that they were impacted by that. Or like even for myself, the first time I ever contacted my elected representative was when there was a bill in Minnesota that was going to affect my job. I was 16. I was working as a personal care assistant, and there was a regulation that was being considered that would have made it so that I couldn't work. And so here I am, I'm in high school, and my job's on the line. And that's something that I bring up with students who say, this doesn't matter to me. I don't want to go into politics. Why should I care? And it's like, well, hey, someday there might be a bill that affects you in some pretty big ways. And being involved and aware of what's going on in our communities and what's happening at the Capitol that's going to affect our neighbors is just such an important part of being good citizens and practicing citizenship worthy of the gospel is, knowing what's happening and caring. Politics really do matter, especially as believers, and giving students the tools to get involved. One of the alumni that we recently highlighted, one of the things that he talked about was how doing a committee meeting for LEAD actually gave him the tools to testify in a real-life committee meeting. And just seeing the ways that people have been equipped with this. Because, you don't want to wait until your job's on the line for, now I have to figure out the legislative process. It's so much more empowering if you can go into it knowing how a committee meeting works and knowing how to read a bill and being able to approach it with an understanding of the political process instead of trying to learn that while also under the stress of, hey, this legislation's going to affect me and I don't know what to do about it. So LEAD really gives people tools that are applicable, whatever area of life they end up in after they graduate.
Absolutely. I love that. And what you're saying is so true, because if people don't know even what's going on in politics, they don't know what bills are even being considered or being pushed, then how can they even know if it's going to affect them or not? And that's something I hear all the time. It's just, it's not affecting me. I can be checked out. If you're checked out, you don't know if it's affecting you. Right? And so that is just such a good response to those people that maybe are thinking along those lines. You don't have to be a politician to come to LEAD. You really don't. In fact, we have such a diverse group of students, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we have students coming from just so many different backgrounds, and so many different areas of interest. And I mean, we have students who drive 6-7 hours to come to LEAD.
Wow.
So we get the full range of, Minnesota's an interesting state politically, because we have our big cities, and we have our rural areas, our farm communities, Iron Range, and it's been cool to see how LEAD has pulled from all these different parts of Minnesota and the perspectives that students bring, whether they're coming from an inner city background or a farming community background, or up in the Iron Range, and just the different perspectives that they bring to various Minnesota issues, and the way that really helps other students see the way that these bills that they didn't think they were going to care about are affecting people that they know, and just seeing the way that that clicks for students because of the diverse range of students that we have coming to LEAD.
I love that. And I also just love the enthusiasm of young people. There's something so beautiful and amazing about how young people are passionate about what they're passionate about. Like there are truths that they hold dear, and they will fight for those truths. And it is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the fact that LEAD just comes alongside students and empowers them to keep going and keep fighting, and gives them that community, those connections, that worldview, all of the tools that they need to go out and continue that. That's just amazing. I love it.
Absolutely. And that's something, I mean, we've gotten feedback from our speakers on that. We had one come in from out of state for a couple years, and both times that he came, he was like, I love the way that your students just jump in, and they are so engaged and so interested in these controversial issues, and also thinking really carefully. Because he was our worldview speaker, and he was like, I'd pose an ethics question, and students are immediately parsing out, okay, but what about this and what about this, and capturing the nuance of what's going on. So it's been incredible to see the energy and the very thoughtful engagement from students that we have at LEAD.
Yeah, and I've had the privilege of being an ADC, which we talked about that before, but that's basically like a counselor for LEAD. I've done that 2 years now, and I am just blown away, because sometimes I have these really shy students that are in my group that I'm helping, and they go from being the quietest person in the whole committee, in the whole caucus, to by the end being so outspoken in a good way, and so confident in themselves. It is amazing. And just their speaking too. They go from barely being able to get words out and just being uncomfortable, visibly uncomfortable, to being so powerfully confident. And I know, and I've heard stories that like they text me, they tell me, I've been able to take that into my life, and that doesn't go away after LEAD. Like that goes into their real life, to their school, to their job. They just take that with them. And so it's encouraging to me as a staffer, and it should be encouraging to everyone. I mean, I think it should be encouraging to parents too. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, just or maybe just feedback you've received on what parents are saying about LEAD, because ultimately students should get involved, but we need that stuff of parents to get on board with the program too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great that you bring up the confidence building side of LEAD, because that is something that we have heard from parents. We got a note from one a couple years ago. Thank you for creating this unique opportunity for young adults. Your program has been very confidence building for my young men who have attended. Wow. And one of the things that I love about that is, her young men, her young adults, and that is an important part of LEAD, is that we acknowledge these teenagers. They are young men and young women, and we encourage them to rise to that standard. And when you hold those expectations for students, so often you see they do rise to meet that challenge. Yeah, and I mean, we've had so many parents who have come to us and said, I saw my student come out of their shell when they came to lead. I saw my student grow in responsibility when they came to lead. I saw them grow in leadership, confidence, just all these different ways that they've been impacted by the LEAD program. And one of my favorite things is when we get younger siblings who are coming, because parents have seen the effect and they're like, hey, I saw how this shaped this son or daughter. I'm going to send my next son or daughter as well. And not because it's a cookie cutter mold, but because LEAD really does equip students, the so many different personalities who come to camp, their different strengths, their different gifts. And, I've seen siblings come through and they are just so completely different, and they both get something incredible out of LEAD, and that's been so much fun, and also hearing from like pastors and teachers as well who have sent students to our program, and just the change that they've seen in students, and the excitement that they have for what LEAD is and how it has shaped their students.
Yeah, so as we just heard from patients, LEAD really is about breaking the curse of those low expectations, because our culture, so much of our culture tells students and children and teens that they can't change the world or that they are a certain way, and really that's not true. There are so many powerful leaders that are teens, and they have this amazing capacity. Their capacity is so much greater, I think, than we often give them credit for, and so if we treat them like adults, like you're saying, they rise to that challenge. If we treat them how they should be treated and just trust them and build them up, they can accomplish so many great things. And it encourages me. This is just such an encouraging program to me.
Yeah.
So that transitioning from that, I'd like you to tell us about our group discount, because that's super important. If you're listening and you're loving what you're hearing and you want to get involved, here's a discount for you.
Yes, definitely. So we have a discount for groups of 8 or more, which can be combined with our early bird rate. Our early bird rate goes through March 31st, and the two combined come out to $75 in savings per student.
That's so good.
So definitely worthwhile. Also, I mean, bringing a group to LEAD is just such a great way to enhance the LEAD experience. Like I said, with my experience coming to LEAD, I knew a lot of the people that I was learning alongside of, and we had opportunities to deepen our friendships there, and also to bring more people into that friend group and continue to grow those connections. So definitely take advantage of our group discount, take advantage of our early bird rate. The two together, it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah, so kind of bouncing off that idea of group discounts and bringing, groups together. I was involved for many years in high school in student government, and I can't help but think what an amazing opportunity LEAD would be if you are involved in student government, either if you are an elected officer or if you hope to be in the future, because it will just sharpen your leadership skills so much, and it'll build that camaraderie. So think of it almost as a leadership retreat, if you will.
Yeah,
if you have a team already, or if you hope to be on a team, you should definitely come to LEAD. There's so many reasons to come, but that's just something that I automatically thought of when you're talking about that camaraderie. So can you tell us where we can find LEAD, where the website is, where we can find you on Instagram, and obviously it'll be linked in the description too. But
so our website is www.leadminnesota.org. And then we're also on Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram, it's at lead.mn. And on Facebook, we're LEAD Minnesota. So, definitely check us out. Follow us. And check out our reels that my office assistant says I need to be making.
And I think I made one for you, too.
Yes, you did. Yeah. One of our pro-life reels.
Yeah. So as we close out, first of all, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Patience. We loved having you. Is there any big takeaway you'd like for our listeners to hear? If there's one thing they take away from this podcast episode, what would that be?
So I think a big thing is what I love about LEAD is that I get to see the potential of Gen Z every summer. And like there are so many negative things that people have to say about Gen Z. And sure, sometimes those things are warranted, but people tend to look at Gen Z and they're like, oh, this generation doesn't have potential, or this generation is up against too much. And yeah, Gen Z is facing some significant challenges, but they also have some incredible opportunities before them. And I love seeing the way that LEAD students just take full advantage of those opportunities. And I love seeing the way that LEAD changes people's perspectives on Gen Z. You know, we've seen that with speakers, we've seen that with volunteers, we've seen that with parents, and just the way that it's an opportunity for students to flourish and to get this vision for what citizenship worthy of the gospel looks like. And we've seen students take that and run with it. And it's incredible to see, and it's so worth investing in, because I believe that Gen Z is a generation that has incredible potential and incredible opportunities. And I love seeing the way that LEAD helps them make the most of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Patience. You heard it here. Gen Z is capable. They're rising up. You can change the world. Come to LEAD and we will help equip you. This has been the Family Beacon Podcast. We will catch you next week for our season finale. Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon Podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.